Okay. We are sure.
Io ho fatto la stessa cosa l'altra volta. Ti serve una mano?
Non volevo. Non è che è buscato?
No, l'altra volta l'avevo spostato. C'era solo lo scalino della finestrella. Poi si mette se esce.
Sì.
È una laurea, lo so, però.
So, what's somebody? Are we ready? "200 years ago, Daniel Webster said what follows: If all my talents and powers were to be taken away from an unscrutable providence, and I had my choice of keeping but one, I would unhesitatingly ask to be allowed to keep the power of speaking, for through it, I would quickly recover all the rest." 2 centuries have passed, and this sentence is as true as it can be today. And I realized that myself some times ago. I would like to start with how I became interested in public speaking. At that time, I was a salesman. Actually, I was a bit older than you are now, so quite young. And I was trusting my boss, actually my boss's boss, to invest in me and send me to some kind of training, because I was just improvising everything as a salesman. And eventually, I managed. He sent me to a 3 days workshop in Milan. And when I was back, he was telling me, "Okay, finally, are you happy that we invested in you?" And I said, "Well, Adriano, I don't really know how to tell this to you, but I'm quitting this job because I want to be a public speaker." He wasn't happy. It wasn't happy like at all. Because in those 3 days, I wasn't that interested in the content. I thought it was a bit on the shitty scale, you know what I mean? And I was right. But one of the guys speaking had kept me like glued to the 3 days without losing a single word he said. And after those 3 days, I said, "Okay, here something is happening. I must learn that thing, because that is power." Because I knew myself. I thought I was unable to follow someone for more than 5 minutes before starting thinking on my own things. You know the feeling, don't you? Who is laughing here? So, and actually I did that. I went to them and say, "Hey, can I work with you?" And they said, "No, we're not looking for anyone." Okay. Can I just follow you everywhere? And just, you don't pay me, I don't pay you, I just help you around. I said, "Okay, we guess." And eventually they had me speak, and then I became a public speaker, and a lot of things happened. Then I started studying content, not just delivery, and I ended up having 2 companies that deal in neurocognitive behavioral approach. That means everything that ranges from communication to motivation and decision making. Too many things to speak about today. We have a very short time, so I just go fastly over something. When Laura asked me about these days, these hours, I said to myself, "Okay, you have 3 hours and you have to cover public speaking." Usually the workshop is 3 days, so either I speak very quickly or I have to jump over something. Public speaking is one of the most powerful skills you can get, whatever you choose to do. Every field, industry, country, and everything you will do probably will involve some kind of public speaking. And studies show that being afraid of public speaking, that is part of a bigger fear called social anxiety disorder. That's sad. It's not SAD, it's SAD, S-A-D, social anxiety disorder. Yeah. Correlates to chances of having higher wages, promotions, and better graduation results as a 10% factor that detracts from those. So being afraid of speaking and in general of social context is a big impairment. And even if you're not, and even if these studies only tell about 10%, they don't take into consideration how many opportunities people with social anxiety disorder or a less form of public speaking have missed because of those. So we will be working today on making you a better speaker. And this is made by two different parts. That is, build a good presentation and be able to deliver it. And most people, here's the first thing, most people think of public speaking as just the act of speaking. That's so strange. A lot of time when people ask me for public speaking, and the whole first day of my 3-day workshop doesn't cover a single minute about speaking, but building. And they're surprised. Oh, there is so much behind it? Of course. It's like thinking a movie, just some bunch of actors meeting on a stage and start acting. There is a lot more behind. Same is true for public speaking. And actually, if you think of it as a movie, it makes a lot of sense. Helps you understand the parts. So, we will use two frameworks this morning that will cover most of public speaking. Most of the things you can change. But let's see before, briefly, so we can concentrate on everything after, what you cannot change. Basically, we'll structure today in two parts. First, how to build a good presentation. And then, how to deliver it. And let's start from the model that we will use and why we are using a model. Or framework, call it whatever you want. Most of your speech, eventually, they won't follow this framework if you have become a good public speaker. But you need one if you want to become a good speaker. Let me make an example. Why so? Because someone say, this is so rigid, so strict. Can you just speak? I know a lot of speakers that don't use this framework and are effective. Yes, maybe, but how long does it take to become good without model or framework? And it's like, did someone of you study music? Did someone? As a kid, maybe? Okay. How boring, I don't know the name in English. Are you English or Italian speaker? Italian? Okay. I will make this question in Italian because I don't know the name in English. Quanto è noioso all'inizio studiare? Sei la prima persona che non mi dice. Cosa hai studiato?
Chitarra.
Ok, allora non l'hai fatto. Anyway, if you know anyone that studied like piano, or okay, the part of the music where you have to study just the times, and it's called solfeggio in Italian. This is the most boring thing you can think. And you have to study for hours and hours. And you think to yourself, I will never use this. What I'm doing? You're building your framework. In that case, your musical framework. Without a framework, it's very difficult to make progress. And also, to understand yourself, which are the most critical areas. Without a framework, you just learn by time. That works. You just need a lot of it. Okay? So, my suggestion is, even if this framework seems close and rigid, leave it only when you have fully mastered it. Then you can know when to skip something or not. It's like, you remember that movie? Walks on, walks off? Metti la cera, togli la cera? That's the same. He was learning martial arts, but he needed a framework. He needed to train your mind on a gesture. And that's the same. The framework trains your mind and your body. When you are fully trained, then you can start winging it, improvising it, and it will work. If you just start improvising, it's just a mess, okay? So, let's start with which elements are in a speech, not in the speech itself, but in a speaking event. Which are the elements of an event?
Introduction.
Those are the parts of the speech. No, I think about, that's good, keep it for later. I'm thinking about the more general context. You have to speak.
The content, speaker.
The content, the topic, the speaker, what else? The audience, what else?
Channel.
Attention.
Yeah,
The place.
yes, the context. The context in general. Because think about this speech. There is me, the speaker, there is you, there is the topic, that is public speaking. It's a bit of a inception thing, yeah. And yeah, having the workshop on public speaking feels like a lot of inception thing. I will quote the thing that I've just said so many times because that's fun. And then there is the context. Think about this happening, I don't know, on a grass somewhere, not university related. It would be completely different. So those are the four elements. They are divided into two groups. What do you say are those groups? Two and two.
People and
Audience
audience.
and context. Why those are a group? No?
There's the receivers.
No?
You cannot manage that.
Yes. You cannot change them. You can change the topic. You can change yourself. You can work on content and speaker. You can do nothing about audience and context. So let's see before that you cannot change, because those you can just learn as much as you can. Okay? Let's start from the context, because this is actually the most important. Because inside the context, there is the most important question, that is, what is my goal? Every time there is a speech, there is a goal. What's the purpose? What you want to attain from your speech. And the context, of course, is part of it. For example, today, what's my goal? Because you can have different goals in the same context, because depending on what you want after that speech. Do you want to get the attention of just one person in the audience? Or do you want to teach everyone something? It makes a lot of difference in how you will choose topic and whatever we are seeing after this. What is there before and after me? Your speech is inside other things most of the times. Ask yourself, what are people experiencing? Okay, is it a TED talk or is a uni lesson? There's a lot of difference in those, isn't it? And this brings you to the second element you cannot change.
Can I make a question?
Yes, sure.
The length of the speech is part of the contest. If you have 1 hour, 4 hours,
Yes.
or just
Yes,
3 days.
yes, of
Or
course.
30 minutes of
Yes.
the CEO of
This
the
is,
company.
yes, exactly. This is, inside here, there is all the questions like, how much time, where I am, everything that is just audience is inside the context. For example, how much time do I have? This, today, when I framed today's speech, I start by that. That was my main constraint. Think of these as constraint, okay? You can bend a little, but you cannot break them, okay? These are your constraint, your borders. You have to speak inside those. For example, I had 3 hours to cover the whole public speaking thing. Or 4?
Three and a half.
Oh.
From 9 to 1. But
I will tell a story in the last hour, because I am trained for 3. So, and then, let's switch to the second element. You cannot change, that is, the audience. Actually, here you have even more questions you can ask yourself. First, who are they? Who are they? I knew who you were, and that was enough to shape my presentation today. I didn't know each one of you personally, but I know more or less the kind of audience I would have. What they know about the subject you're speaking about. couple of months ago, I had a big, and I teach, I've been teaching public speaking for years, and I had a big issue with this question. I was in San Francisco, where my company are, and I was preparing a public speech about stress, burnout, and intrinsic motivation. And I frame my slides as usual, because I'm mostly here, and those kind of speech I have mostly. And in the audience, the first guy that entered, there was still half an hour, so it was very, very early. It was a neuroethicist. I didn't know even the name before. Basically, a neuroscientist with a PhD in neuroethics. And I said, okay, maybe my frame is a bit soft, because I was expecting, in my mind, like beginners. He was very, in fact, he gave me a lot of problems during the first hour of the speech. I had to manage him, because he had the impression that the topic were to think, okay? I was too superficial, because he was expecting a high level. But most of the people there were not his level, so I had to frame for them, but I didn't think that in San Francisco, a lot of time you have the random guy that is passing by is a double PhD in something. And so I should be more careful. So next question, what they expect, and with that, what they want. Because usually these are different things. A lot of times people do not expect a lot. They would like something, but they're not expecting it. So what they expect, what they want, and regarding what they want, what can I offer of what they want? These three are, a lot of time you have different questions for answer for all of these questions. Expecting, wanting, and actually what you can provide. And lastly, which kind of resistance they have about your topic, and how you can overcome them. You see, by asking, yeah.
Question. What do you mean resistance?
So there are several kinds of speeches, and some are just informative speeches. But most of the times, when you speak in a public event or an event in general, you want to have some kind of consequence, like change idea on something, or behave differently, or do something. And people usually have a resistance about changing their ideas, behaving differently. Think about a TED event. Any kind of TED talk you can think of. Probably the speaker wants to make one of those two things. Either having people thinking differently about something, or doing something different. Isn't it? And about this specific behavior, which kind of resistance do they have? For example, last speech I attended to was a girl, quite young one, for being a speaker, that wanted people to consume less water. And so, she took into consideration which kind of resistance we can have in having a different behavior in reducing water consumption. Because if you think about the possible objections that people can do, you can build your speech for them instead of being surprised by them. Okay? So, you see how much you could ask about this event even before choosing the topic and working with the speaker. And the two frameworks that we will use to analyze the remaining elements, speaker and topic, are very new and innovative and top of the innovation. Well, no, that actually there are Aristotle and Cicero, because we didn't make even one step ahead of those. We 2,000 years, not 100. My first quote was of 200 years ago. These are from 2000s, even more years ago. And they already knew everything we know today about rhetoric. Really. And we should use rhetoric instead of public speaking, because that was the name. They invented it. Actually, we invented it because I feel part of that tradition. But it's not about bragging ancestors. It's about understanding that speaking has been there since the beginning. And at those times, being able to speak effectively was considered also part of a moral balance of the individual. If you weren't able to speak, you were less. And everyone there was able to do it. Everyone, every citizen. And we can all, even when I have 3 days, I didn't make one step out of those frameworks. Of course, putting them in today's context, but using no more, no less than what they said. Let's start with the first one. But first, let's change the title of today's lessons. It's not about public speaking, but it's about rhetoric. And so it's the art of persuasion through words. Some people have some brief bad reaction about persuading. Oh, this is about persuading people. Yes, of course, it's about persuading people. Persuading people in itself is not a bad thing. Depends on your goal in your head. But there is a lot of people to say, oh no, you're teaching of persuading. You're an evil maker of evil people that will go around persuading people. Both Hitler and Gandhi persuaded a lot of people. Okay? I leave to you the consideration. So, learning that skill is something in itself. Then everyone will make the use. His moral code will tell. But first, learn the art.
Not like technology, the same.
Yes. It's just think about martial arts. Even if you're a black belt in Kung Fu, you don't go around punching people in the face just because you can. Okay? That is the same with art of speaking. You don't go around like trolling people just because you can. But you can defend yourself and you can fight your battles more effectively. So let's start from Aristotle, the means of rhetoric. These are the 3 weapons you have. Every speaker has 3 weapons you can use. And they are ethos, logos, and pathos. Of course, Greek. Let's start with the first. And each of those you can sharpen. You can train. And some speakers use one more than another. But it is in the good balance of the 3 that lays the effectiveness of the speaker and of a speech. The first is ethos. Ethos is the speaker's credibility, authority, and sympathy. Let's analyze the 3 parts. First is credibility. It doesn't matter how flowing your argument, how good it seems. If you are not credible as a speaker, it makes no good. So, what does the audience know about you? How do you support your credibility? How do you support it? How would you support? You have to speak in front of someone. How do you make yourself credible?
Having a good introduction.
Having someone introduce you is the best way. Because someone else is speaking. If no one can introduce you,
Give some information about your background.
yes, you start explaining why you are credible. But this lies a very tricky trap. That is speaking good of oneself. Okay. Oh, I did this and did that. So what's the trick? Yeah.
Maybe you back up what you say with references.
So first is facts. You don't make judgment about yourself. Oh, we were so good. No one wants to hear you making brag through. Okay. So you state facts. Okay. So stay objective. I did this and this and this, and these are the results. The more objective you are, and the better it is. There is a second, but this is a bit dry. How do you spice it up? If you want to make some Yeah, good judgment. How can you? Hmm? This technique is called make someone else the hero. You start speaking to, you start like speaking in really good terms of something or someone that is not you, and then you link yourself to those. Okay? So for example, when I speak about one of my company makes a product that listens to people's motivation. And we create a framework to understand people's engagement, motivation, and well-being in a company. But instead of saying, we know how to do that, let's say today, science is able to understand behavior. Today, there are techniques that have validated theory, and now the community, the scientific community, has no doubt about how the things work and how to understand someone's experience. We just use that technique and put it inside an app. See? I started by elevating something, someone, something, and anything, and then I link myself to that. You remember the phrase, I was able to see farther than all the others because I stood on the shoulder of giants. Have you heard? That's it. You have to speak about the giant. And then you say that you climb his shoulders. This way you can hide the credibility with some pathos that we will see behind. Because if you just state facts, it will be a bit dry. Okay? So if you have to brag, don't do it on yourself, but on someone else, and then you make relevant the link you had with them. Is okay? If you, after today, if you watch speeches of time, you will see a lot of those techniques. This is really used. Authority. Authority is not about credibility, but how much you can sustain, how much it's mostly about your communication, your delivery. Authority is something you radiate. Actually, for Italian speakers, I will make even a more subtle distinction. Sorry, English ones, but this distinction doesn't exist in English. English have only one word, that is authority. In Italian, you have autorità and autorità. So the thing you want to build is autorità. It's very different. In English is authority and authority. Okay, so I cannot, but one is the kind of authority that you take from yourself. Like the boss has authority in his workplace, okay? Because the rules or because justice imposed. Autorità, so authority too, because English has both meanings, is the kind of authority that people recognize in you. Okay. So it's a difference between a boss and a leader. And this mostly is from the kind of style and delivery you create. We'll see it further. And then there is sympathy, not in the meaning of being nice, but in the original meaning of sympathy, sympathis, being close, closeness, emotional closeness with your audience. Stand on a pedestal and elevating yourself makes no good. People should be able to think they are you in some way. The more close you can make your argument to them, the best. Yeah. Any question on ethos? It's all around the, you see, it's all around the speaker. We haven't, yeah.
This last part of sympathy, you described it as being emotionally close with the audience.
Yes.
I don't see that working with all kinds of audiences.
What do you mean?
I think it depends very much on the story you're telling and together with who you have in front of you. If you are describing a very tragic story of your past to introduce yourself, maybe the audience does not want to be reflected in that story.
That's one of the parts that is more important. They feel that a tragic story is the most. So I'm not implying that they have to have experienced the same, but if we feel close, then our mind reacts in a certain way. If we feel distant, we don't care. That's the same thing, for example, the tragic story. That's the same thing why it's so difficult to have people change behavior toward poor region of the world. Because they are far, they don't know them, and they are more willing to empathize with one kid being abandoned than 1,000. So if you want to have a behavior happen, you shouldn't speak about the 1,000 kids that are abandoned, but tell one story of a single kid, and then say, and there are 1,000 like that. For example, this is exactly one of the times when you want people to sympathize, to stay close to your story. So the point is, your question opens a whole so basically, there are two parts of your brain, well, several parts, but two main parts that react to words. The neocortex and the prefrontal neocortex, mainly, where your analytical reasoning is, and your limbic area. And if you just speak to the prefrontal cortex, you foster reasoning, but not emotion and not behavior. The spring of behavior happens in the limbic part of the brain, and this is only triggered by some kind of emotional response, be it fear, closeness, or some kind of emotion. This triggers memory, behavior, and all kind of active reactions. So if you want an active reaction, even remembering something, you must find a way of connecting.
Is it more about empathy?
So, yes, so this part, sympathy, is part here and part in the third element, that is pathos, this third meaning. So let's keep it, because here it's just your ability through your speech of staying in contact. Even if you're presenting, let's say, the most arid and harsh speech, a scientist presenting his study, academical study, on something to his peers, okay? Imagine a symposium of scientists. Can you think of something less empathic than that? Okay. And think about, we discover this, and this. How, even in that context, how different it is. So, we have gone through a lot of troubles testing these, because as you know, that kind of experiment has this problem, probably you encounter those as well. You see? Even this premise, it's, oh yeah, we had a lot of problem with that. And we solve in this way. Oh, that's me solving those. Okay. So, if your audience can, even for a second, think they are you doing what you're presenting, or thinking that way, or imagine him that way, it will help trigger some emotional trigger. The second part is logos. And actually, when Aristotle presented this, he was very much for logos. Basically, he said, you know, it's all about logos, but you also should study ethos and pathos. But logos is the point, because this is, of course, the core of the argument itself, is the clarity, efficiency, and understandability of the topic presented. It's the strength of reason. Okay, how much what you're saying is clear, understandable, and focused. It's the message, okay, with all the support and all the arguments to prove it. And third, there is, it's pathos, right pathos. And the ability to move emotions. So this is very close to the sympathy that we're seeing, but it's the part where your experience translates into their experience. So it's the ability to convey emotions and to convey feelings, not just concepts. So these three, we will stop here because we will use those three in the several phases of the speech to see when you can use one or the other. Because these you use throughout the presentation, throughout the presentation, you alternate your ethos, your logos, and your pathos. Let's start with the second framework that we will use throughout the rest of today. Yes?
I've got a question. Is it the same with a speech, in a speech where you have a written presentation, like in this case where
Yeah.
you can watch, or in a case where you do not have a presentation?
Completely.
The same.
Completely.
3 hours or 15 minutes with the CEO, the same.
Yeah. This structure is exactly the same. It's just everything is short or managed different. But these canons are present in every single speech. And the slides actually, they are for you, not for me. I could close the slides and go over the presentation exactly the same way. The slides are for helping your audience follow you. We will get into slides at the end of the. So let's start with the 5 canons of rhetoric. And first we have Greek, now we have Latin. You didn't think about studying ancient languages this morning. And they are inventio, dispositio, elocutio, memoria, and actio. Don't be afraid, we will use English name as well. But it's cool to put Latin in Greek somewhere. Let's start with the first canon, inventio. Inventio is the idea, the process of creation and development of the topics. So, what is the message? I like the movie comparison. If this was a movie, if this were a movie, what's the idea? How do you describe the movie with 10 words? 10. What's the central thing you want to leave? Because this is actually all the speech is a mean for you to transmit an idea from your head to their head, a single idea. Everything else is just okay. Most of the time, you can have just one idea. If there are more ideas, then there are more speeches. Okay, because a speech should be able to convey one idea supported. For example, this speech this morning, this is not the idea. These are proofs that the idea is public speaking is one of the most important skills you can develop. And if you don't develop, you won't be able to do it effectively. All my 3 hours are a mean to transfer this idea from my head to your head. Because basically, the idea is what should be able to go through the communication process. The communication process is this. You think of something. Have you ever thought about think about the communication process as an obstacle race? Okay? There is your idea, and then there are the obstacles. You think of something. What's the first obstacle? After you have something in your mind, you have to say it. So, I say, first obstacle, are you able to frame everything you think in a good way? You see? Yeah, first obstacle, it's a short wall. Okay, you jumped it. Second obstacle, okay, you have said it. Now what? The audience has to? No. You jump 2 things in a row. Listen. Hear. This is the more than listen. Hear. They have to hear it. If this obstacle that you forgot about is the most relevant one. If you go at any speech, and you go next time you go in a speech, do it. You go next to the stage, and then you turn around. How many people are following? What do you guess? How many people are listening, hearing, and how many people are doing this?
30%.
It's around 40%. Okay, so people that paid and went there, they are not following. Think about that. Think about that. How big is that obstacle? Each of these obstacles need you to do something different. then they have heard it and now they have to understand, of course. But this, someone said, okay, you misplaced the circle. No, I didn't. Because this is inclusion. Everything you say, you have thought properly. And everything they hear, you have said. But not everything they understand, you have said. Okay? This is your ability to be clear, understandable, because sometimes people understand something else, completely different. Isn't it?
Yeah. Many
Is it
times.
enough? They have to do what? Two things. Depending on the kind of speech.
Agree?
Not necessarily, but after some time. Memorize. If you just have a great presentation and 2 days after that, people do not remember a thing, has your speech been effective? Public speaking is measured, is one of those activities that is measured not on the time you spend doing it, but on the effects you achieve, like teaching. Doesn't matter how much you teach, but how much people learn. Doesn't matter how much you speak, but how much people learn and remember. And this is an easy kind of speech. It's called informative speech. You have just to transmit information. There is a more difficult kind of speech. What is?
Inspirational.
Yes. If you want them to do something, it's even more difficult. And a lot of time with your speeches, you will want people to do something, like argue, for example. Isn't that a speech? Of course it is. It's one of the most, actually it's one of the easiest speech. The work interview, so easy compared to other speech. If you master public speaking, that will be like a stroll around the park. Really. Really. And so the idea should be there at the end of your speech. The idea is the concept, the single concept that has to go through things, say, hear, understand, remember, and maybe move action. So think well about the idea you want to convey. It's like for a movie, it's the basic subject for a movie. Okay? And it shouldn't take you more than 10 or 20 words at most. Because it's not the speech, it's the core idea. There is no a perfect way to describe ideas, but there are some guidelines to make it easier for you. Let's see some of them. Ideas are phrases, not periods. Ideas that are short. Sometimes it can also be the title. And if you want to see a very bad way of putting ideas into title, sorry, but look at every university thesis title. None of those titles inspire curiosity. Oh, I want really to see how it, I don't know, you think about those titles, okay? Are they inspired? Oh, I want to learn about this. They are I don't know why this practice got consolidated in having those terrifying titles, okay? That is the idea in the worst way. Because on every voice of these suggestions, it's the opposite. It's short, no, it's usually 3 lines long. It's one sentence of 3 lines. Second,
Can I make a question?
yes.
Considering we are studying management consulting,
Yeah.
and we started our course with the very often used methodology of the answer first approach. That means start with the answer you want to give to your customer. We are
Yes.
consultants and can be, you should buy the company X, you should launch this kind of product, and you should enter the country X because it's very profitable. Is that kind of recommendation the idea we're talking about?
Yes.
Yes.
It's the conclusion you want to.
Yeah, because normally we try to work anticipating the result of all the presentation, then all the rest
Yes,
is just
yes.
to demonstrate.
Exactly,
Right, okay.
exactly.
So the answer
I will go,
approach
yes,
is-
this is
okay.
the idea. Sometimes you can also put it in the title. Sometimes not, so the title, but this is, you know this is the idea. For example, when you make a TED talk, they suggest you to make not more than 10 words and to repeat it at least 20 times during the 18 minutes. 20 times, that's an incredible amount of time. So ideas communicate clear positions. It should be clear from your audience where you stand. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you see people argumenting one way and the other, and it's not clear what they are, which position they have. Ideas have to be demonstrated, and here it is. An idea is not something you say, it's something you say, you explain, you prove, and you conclude. And these are the four steps for idea to become credible. They are said, then explained, then proved, and then conclude. Ideas have to be repeated. So, this is not about ideas. We are going into the structure, but let's anticipate here. One of the most difficult problems for public speaking is that we are used to think about books. If you're reading a text and you don't understand what you do, you read it again. You go back. You turn the pages back. Can you turn back the speaker? Please turn back because I haven't understood. So if you're missing just a part, and that was important, how able are you to follow? One of the biggest problems of speaker is that they don't repeat. And they expect the audience. Since it is so important for them, of course they are listening. Even the greatest speaker is not able to keep 100% of the audience 100% of the time. So if something is important and someone has missed it, you must repeat it. Of course, in a different way. It's not just repeating the same phrase again, like repeating the phrase, not like that. But the concept shouldn't just be put once, especially if it is the main idea. And lastly, best ideas are short, simple, and strong. Complexity is never good. A good question is, can I make it more simple? And beware, simple doesn't mean easy. Simple is the opposite of complex. A lot of time things are simple, but conceptually very difficult. Okay? Is it clear? Okay. So, let's move to the second canon, that is disposition. This is a canon where we will stay a bit more, because when I said at the beginning that there are two parts, two skills of public speaking. One is building and one is delivering. And those are so different that a lot of times you have people doing one and people doing another. Take, for example, comedians. Most comedians, they have authors writing. So they are great deliverer, but they don't write. And of the four canons, most of the canons are for writing. And structure, disposition, is the main one. This is 100% the biggest problem I hear when I follow speech. The biggest problem, every speech I encounter, it has a problem of disposition. If this were the movie, this is your screenplay. Okay? It's clear, the structure. That is the process of arrangement and organization of the topics in order to optimize impact and memorization. And since Plato, probably Aristotle and Cicero on, and probably even before, speeches have been divided into three parts. And this is called the hamburger frame. Have you ever heard of it? Hamburger has three parts. It has an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. And it's very useful because, yeah, it has a lot of similarities that will help you remember it. First, introduction and conclusion are very similar. Yes, they are. And then the body is the one with the most thing in between. But if you don't have a good balance of the three, it becomes complicated or not appealing. For example, all this is not appealing, not enough body. This probably has too much body, and this has a conclusion in between. How do I get it? So okay, keep in mind, there are topics where people they conclude in the middle of the speech and they say, "Whoa, they just put a lot chunk of bread here. You should have, I don't know, tomato, lettuce, or something." So you will remember. Let's start with the first, that is introduction. What's the function of introduction? What's the goal? During an introduction, what do you do? Yes?
You want to get the attention of the
Get the
people.
attention. That's the first and most important. Get the attention. What else?
Tell them what you're going to say.
This is something you do. Keep it there. It's not a goal. It's a way. It's a how and not a why. Okay, but you do it in order to help understanding. So the goal of introducing, we are going to see what you just said in the next slide. But this is one of the things you do, but you do it for a reason. First, we are seeing which are the goals of the introduction. The goals are 4: catch the attention, create credibility, help understanding, and relax. Relax. So, catch the attention. People decide if they want to listen to you between 30 and 60 seconds in your speech. If you didn't catch the attention by then, they're probably not gonna listen to you for most of your speech, because they have a very quick and strong reaction. Is one part of their brain actually that is doing that. Let's not go there. Okay, but there is a part of the brain that does that. They decide in 1 minute if you are someone interested or not. So first, catch attention. Then create credibility. Basically, most of your ethos you build during the introduction. Okay, because you want to build that before starting speaking, not during the speech. Help understanding. The introduction has the purpose of helping them follow you during the structure. And then relax, because most of the tension we will get there during the delivery step today, but most of the tension just wears off after the first minutes, isn't it? Even in exams. So you should also remember that and plan accordingly. You know that this is the part where you will be most tense. So if we will use Aristotle framework here, you have a lot of ethos, a lot of pathos, and very little logos here. You're basically building the speaker persona, some kind of reaction from the people, and very, very few about actually introduction. One of the least thing that does is introduce the topic, just briefly, just for help understanding. All the others are not related to the topic at all. Okay. Now we've seen why we do an introduction. Let's see what we do in order to do that. What does an introduction contain? So it always contains an opening, because you will start speaking, not you. So probably the first thing you say, that's your opening. Okay. Or you stay there for the whole time, like in silence, then you don't have an opening, but probably you will have one. Second, it may contain a presentation. We will go on the opening lastly, because it's the most important part. Then there is a presentation. The presentation serves to make that credibility. Okay, so how long should you stay into the presentation? It depends.
Presentation of yourself, speaker's self.
Sorry?
Presentation of yourself or the.
Of yourself?
Okay.
Yes. Because we are seeing that during the introduction, you want to build your credibility. So, how long do you need to stay there?
As long as it's needed.
Hmm?
As long as it's needed.
Yeah, it depends. how much have you been introduced? How much do they already know about you? So when you ask yourself about the people, about the audience, some of those questions were relevant to determine how long should be your presentation. Have they seen you before? Are you speaking on an important stage? Because if the stage is important and you are speaking there, probably this builds credibility enough. So you should ask yourself, how much should I need to build credibility? For example, today I didn't spend much time. I said I have a couple of companies in San Francisco. That's it. In another context, I would have spent more time. Because the fact that I'm speaking inside the university is already building my credibility. If I just bunch a group of people in the park and I start to speak about public speaking, I would have to stay there a bit more, isn't it? So ask yourself, how much do I need to speak about me or my company or my team? Okay, in order for people to believe not what I'm saying, but that I have the right to speak about the topic I'm speaking. Okay? So this is a good question. How much should I stay there? It depends a lot, context, audience, but sometimes you don't even need to. For example, when I make some workshop for my own employees, I don't stay a word in presentation. Okay, they know me very well. Okay. Statement on the goal, thesis, and roadmap. These three parts are different ways of helping people understand what follows. They are different. So, statement of the goal. This is not the thesis. This is the goal you want to achieve in that day. For example, one of the third. Now inception time. Let's go back in time and think about my introduction. Okay? There was a part when I said, my goal today is to make you better speakers. That means to improve 2 skills. You remember? So that was my statement of the goal. And also, there was the roadmap. I said, in the first part, we will see, and in the second part, you remember? You remember? Okay. So these are all means to help people understand. The most useful for that is the roadmap. If you have to speak for some long time, like let's say more than 10 minutes, roadmap is the most effective way for people to be able to follow you. Because for you, in your head, it's all very clear. But that's your head, not their head. In their head, where are you going? Okay? If you say, we will do this by doing this, and this afternoon we will do this, they are already expecting. It's not, okay, they know where you're going. And every time you will introduce something will click in there and say, yeah, I knew who was going to say that. Okay? It gives shape to whatever comes.
Can I make a question?
Yes.
On this roadmap topic,
Yeah.
it could be helpful when you, excuse me, but I just try to focus also on the students for the consultancy.
We should.
Considering that normally a consultant has, like you, a PowerPoint presentation that help the customer or the team in front of them to follow the speech. To help with the roadmap topic, can we have a sort of something? Normally we use a sort of value chain divided in phases.
On the top.
Yeah,
That's
put
very good.
it on the
Or on the side.
yes, on
Yeah.
that in the corner, and every time you go on the next topic, you just call it in another thing,
Yeah.
so that the people can follow
Yeah.
the process.
That is very helpful.
That's
But-
related to
Yes,
roadmap.
yeah, that's a roadmap built in, but
Okay.
especially if you have that, I will state the parts before. We will go through step A, B, C, and D. And every time you can change the slide, they will see A, B, C, and D.
Okay.
So this is useful, but it doesn't substitute stating. Even more, if you have that, I will spend 10 seconds or 15 seconds by explaining, okay, the roadmap. That will fit in the understanding.
Okay.
Very good. It's a very good tool. So, I skipped the opening because that's the most fun part. How do you open? How do you open?
Sorry, I didn't get what the thesis is.
Oh, your idea, your main idea.
Okay.
It's your main idea. That's not the goal. It's your, for example, today, my thesis is public speaking is one of the most important things you can develop in your life. My goal is to help you improve building and presentation. And my roadmap is by following, okay, think about this speech so you can figure out which are. The thesis is the main point, and the goal is what you want to achieve. Sometimes, so you don't need to have all of those. You can choose to have roadmap and not thesis or not goal. These are all means that you can use to attain your 3 goals. Create credibility, catch the attention, have understanding, and relax. So, presentation for credibility, thesis, goal, and the roadmap for understanding, opening for relaxation, and catching the audience. So, what's an opening? An opening is, what do you say first? Let's start from the worst thing you can say. Good morning, everyone. My name is Christian Dolly. I'm here today to speak about public speaking. So lame. Okay, so lame. It's like going to a girl, hey, pleased to meet you. Are you often here in this pub? It's so lame. Everyone says that. Okay, it's not. Yeah, girls are laughing. Okay, does it work? No. Think about something. You have to grab the attention, not to bore them in the first 30 seconds. Okay? Let's see some of the most used way to start. First is quote. Do you remember someone using a quote to open? Yes, you do. Because the quote springs reasoning, and you start wondering, and then usually someone else, so you can say something about the guy. For example, said 200 years ago, a politician in the United States said what followed. You're already paying attention. So the quote is very powerful, of course, a quote that is related to what you have. There are tons of quote engines on the web. There are some really good ones you can pick. Second question. I made a TED talk 6 years ago, and my talk started with when was the last time you had fun? When was the last time you had fun? How many days ago? And what were you doing? You're already engaged. Why? Because you're thinking about yourself. So question make people think. Of course, my TED talk was called When We Stop Having Fun. So it was about being able to keep fun in your life and in your work. So that question was really connected. But it was for them. Because when you think of it, a suggestion, deliver a suggestion each time, but you can put it here, it's very late. Each time you make a question, please leave the needed amount of time for people to think the answer. Think how different it is. So, when was the last time you had fun? I use that phrase for when was your last time you had fun? Think about it. This time, I'm not thinking. You can hear the clock works in the head. Okay, if you don't leave that, the question is useless. Story. Using the Inception example, my speeches started with a quote and a story. You remember it? I will tell you how I decided to study public speaking. Stories are probably the most effective way of opening. If you have a good story, a personal one is even better. If not personal, someone else. Because stories have the power of imagination. Every time we listen to a story, we think we are the protagonist in some way, or we empathize. Okay. City. This is so used by the comedians. When a comedian goes to the show in the city, a lot of time we start with the city. It's a really good city, Bologna. This morning, okay, you say something about the city you're in. If this is not your city, but it's their city, you're empathizing with everyone at the same time. You make some joke about this. Have you ever heard a comedian do that? Lots of times. City is really, really powerful. Especially in the kind of events and context where all those are on the same setting. For example, tour is very useful in that. Connected to city, there is also the common denominator. For example, last time I had a workshop with doctors, medical doctors. So I started with some joke about having a speech with doctors, with kind of audience they were, because I was empathizing with their profession. They all had something in common. So city or common denominator, okay? This is very useful for big audiences. Like, for example, the city. How many of you are from this city? Raise your hand. Okay. What are you doing here, the others? Okay. Okay, something like that. Danger. I remember a guy opening like that. In the United States, 48% of the people suffer from heart stroke during their life. Okay. And then, actually, women less, so you can go there. Okay. So, this is a danger you present or problem, starting with a big and scary problem connected to. For example, I could start this presentation with 1 person in 10 is terrified about public speaking, and 7 out of 10 list public speaking as one of their 5 biggest fears. The only fears that are usually above those are terroristic attack and losing of one's privacy. So we were thinking about making a course on defending against terrorism or public speaking. We decided for the latter. Okay, you start with a question and you go on. Okay, I used some other techniques here that you will see in a little. But the point is staying with the danger related to the topic you are facing. And finally, 3 words. If you don't come up with any of the previous, you can just pick 3 words you are speaking about in your presentation and start with 3. I don't know, like speaker, audience, and topic. Those are the main 3 parts of a public speech. We will learn today how to, but it's so different. Because stating words there, without anything else, make people wonder what's happening here, okay? If you don't come with anything else, just pick the most 3 relevant word, maybe the structure of your sequence has words, pick the most 3 important, then that's your opening. Please just don't start with good morning everyone, my name is, okay? Okay. Yes?
Sorry, please.
Wait, I think my phone is ringing. I have to kill it because it's distracting me. Yes, please.
Can you give us an example of these 3 words?
Yes, for example, drugs, bullying, and social addiction. These are the 3 main problems of the kids today in the schools. We will learn how these 3 could have consequences and whatever. I just improvised it. You made the difficult question. I have to choose a topic and then pick 3 relevant words that are, okay, if you think about any topic, okay, think about counseling you're giving a client. There are 3 words, maybe they are inside your structure, but opening with the 3 words, it's much more impactful than just opening with a. So all these, as in come, they hit. In your opening, you should hit people. Sometimes softly, sometimes with a punch in the face, like the heart attack, sometimes with curiosity, like the question. Okay, the point is you have to trigger some kind of emotional response in your opening. If you don't, they will be bored. Yes. Owen. Okay, yes. Choose first. No, you go first.
Sometimes I just wonder, I can see this structure in context like that, let's say,
Mhm.
or less professional, not professional. I
Yes,
would
yes,
say.
yes, yes.
Like if I'm
Like more
making-
showy, like.
Exactly.
Yes.
More on a, to be on a stage. But
Yes.
if I'm delivering a kind of an assignment, if I'm
Yes.
thinking about consultancy,
Yes.
then can this be powerful? Or maybe like
Definitely.
sometimes, yes, it's
Definitely.
just I don't
You
know.
just change your style. So most
Yeah,
of the time,
exactly.
most
How
of the
you
time,
change.
we will see in style. Most of the time, you see these only in TED Talks. Why? You know why? Because people there prepare for the
Yeah.
talk. You don't see it in contexts like education or business, because people are usually shitty at public speaking in those contexts. That's true. That's true. You know, nothing personal. Laura is a clear example, exception of that. But usually, this is true. More in general. I have a good news and a bad news. What you want before? Bad one. Probably, if you think you're not a good speaker, you're right. But this is because most people suck at public speaking. Could I say suck? Is it, most people suck. Most people, even those that do it for work, even people that speak for most of their time, they suck it. And so someone said, well, if everyone sucks, then maybe everyone is average. No, it's not. If Laura gave you an assignment and you all blew it, it was not the average to be the right way. You got me. So it's not based on the average, it's based on the effect. Most people are not able to keep attention, deliver a concept, and empathize with people. Even those that had to do it for a living. Even those, think about teachers in general, in your student life. How many teachers that you had, you think that would have needed a public speaking course? How many didn't? Most people, even in business contexts, they don't use these techniques because they don't know them. And there's a reason, they never studied it. It's not, in some ways, it's not even their fault, because we don't have the tradition of teaching public speaking as we should. If someone started, the first time I was called for a university lesson, it was 10 years ago, I was very nervous, because my experience was in speaking in other contexts. And so I thought, well, I don't have the style of a teacher. I don't have the kind of, and I was afraid because I thought that my way of speaking was not appropriate. And actually I discovered it was the opposite. That it was even more effective in education because it was useful to keep attention and to keep reaction for the people. So, of course, you have to change the style. For example, now for all these questions, I use the style that fits a speech like this. If this were a consultancy event, I'd have changed the style. But you can keep the same structure with a different style.
Yes, the thing maybe is that I don't know how to change the style.
Yes.
Like how to apply those tricks
Yes.
to another.
You just have to change your style. We will see style in a while.
I wanted to add something just on this topic because as a consultant, we have this kind of question. In January, we had to meet the CEO, the owner, to tell you the truth, of a company, and we had to discuss the industrial plan of the growth of the company. And Barbara received some data a couple of days before, and the financial data were terrible. And they had a very tough financial position, and they didn't have the money for the growth, and they were in a very risky position with banks. So we asked them to come to Bologna, because they are not from Bologna, they are from Tuscany, and we asked for a meeting, and Barbara and myself had to decide how can we structure the meeting with these people. There were the two owners, and the CFO of the company. That is the daughter of one of the two owners. And we, first of all, decided to be very relaxed, very quiet, and to start saying, okay, let's take a look at the numbers, and blah, blah, blah. And to get at the end saying, as you can see, maybe you've got some problems and you have to change a little bit the activities because we do not have to work on the industrial growth plan, but maybe on the financial restructuring of the company. Then at the end, I could not manage a meeting like that because it's not on my on my attitude, and I decided to start with danger. So in the first 3 minutes, I told them, thanks to be here, today we are not going to talk about the growth, but we have a trouble we have to manage. We have a big financial problem we have to talk about. And I started with that problem in the first 3 minutes of the meeting. I didn't consider that they were prepared, because during the trip, the CFO told them that maybe we could have seen some problems in the numbers we had received a couple of days before. And so when I started, I saw their flat face. At the beginning, they were a little shocked. Then they told me we were expecting something like that. And we started from the danger, the problem. The company has a big financial trouble. So do not lose time in sharing nice words just to create, we have a problem. And I couldn't, manage a meeting, trying to be relaxed, saying there was a problem at the end. I couldn't. And so I started from that. It was risky, but I decided with no preparation, I have to tell you the truth, with no preparation I decided to opening with the danger, and it was really successful. Because they understood that the situation was very difficult, and without losing any time, we started talking on how to prepare to a difficult situation. So it was very useful. So you can have that kind of opening also in consultancy, also with the owner and the CEO of a company. You can decide the style, you can decide whatever, but you do not use quotes normally because it's a different kind of. But absolutely you can have a question and open with a question, open with a danger, absolutely. Absolutely always opening with 3 words that they have to keep in mind. In that case of the danger was financial distress. You have to have it in mind, because if tomorrow you think that the contract of the life will arrive and you're not prepared and the contract will not arrive, the company will be in trouble. So,
Thank you.
Exactly. So, coming in a second. Again, I will stress these are general guidelines. These are the frames, okay? And you should decide, based on audience, context, and goal, which of these you need and which of these you may decide to skip, okay?
Yeah, so the roadmap in your speech was starting with the canons and the means of rhetoric, right?
Well, no, in my speech, it's like this inception. Actually, I did a bit of a shift. My roadmap was just, we will see first how to build a speech and then how to deliver. Because that's a good question. When does the introduction stop? When does the introduction, is there a time after some minutes? When does an introduction stop and the body begins? When you start putting on the table the topics, when you start opening the box, okay? So the introduction is just the first part. When you're not saying anything, okay? So in my case, the roadmap was just very shortly introduced, very shortly, briefly explained when I said we'll see first how to build a presentation, and second, how to deliver it. And then it started. And then, if you remember, at that point I said something like, do you have a question? Should we start? You remember that? Okay, that was the end of my introduction. It was clear. Because I said, do you have a question before we get into the main body? It was clear from I was making I was dividing the introduction and body. People should know when you are actually starting. So I tell a joke, I tell a story, I make a quote, then I state the goal and what we will do. Okay, one characteristic of the introduction, it's a lot of time you speak in future. We will. Okay, it's an introduction. When you start speaking in future and you start your presentation, use the present. And anticipate something in the conclusion, use the past tense. This is already a nice way of giving. You have to make people follow you, understand what you're doing, not just the concept. So, this is a good introduction, by the way. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. This is a very good introduction. There is the presentation. There is the connection with the audience. You killed my father, and there is the goal of the what's coming. Prepare to die. There is not the roadmap. It's not saying how you will die, but anyway, this is a very good introduction. So you see how short it can be. This resumes 3 of the points we have seen. Yes.
How specific the roadmap has to be?
There is no rule. There is no. The question is how much you think people will need. How many guides they will need to be able to follow. Is it a simple structure or not? Let me get there when we have gone through the bottom. Okay. So, oh, and there is a danger. See, say how many of the things I've seen there. So, the body. The body is the main course. It's all the layers of tomato, lettuce, and meat in your burger. The main, which are the goal of the body. First, what you want to do in the body of your speech. I tell you, keep the attention. Because you draw it at the beginning, but then you have to keep it. Then transmit the main concept, the main idea, and help them understand it. And if we divide the body on the 3 means of rhetoric, of Aristotle's rhetoric, we have much of the logos here. The logos, you see, is a brown part, much of the logos. Then, because the logos is for transmitting and help understanding. And a big part of pathos as well, because you, in time, will have to take again the attention. Okay, because people, the threshold of attention is very quickly dropping. So you have sometimes to shock your audience again. Maybe with some phrase, maybe just with some noise like that. Some of you were sleeping, now you're awake. Okay, so let's see how we do it. This is the goal, how we do it. We do it by building a narrative structure. You remember when I said that the biggest mistake I see in speech is the biggest, number one, basically I see it in every single speech I hear, is the lacking of narrative structure. Let's go ahead with the movie comparison. Have you ever seen a movie that had a good idea, but man, the plot was terrible. The screenplay was terrible. Have you been there? That's it. It is think about a bridge that connects your introduction and your conclusion. What has the main function of a bridge? Stay strong. Okay, you have to go over the bridge in all this length, and it should support you. This is the narrative structure. You should decide which kind of narrative structure you're using. And there are so many. I'm just listing someone for you to understand what I mean and to make some example you can use, but there are many more than these. Probably the most known, and in business, this is one of the most used. I think 80% of the presentation in business are structured with problem, solution, and consequences. So you start with a problem, you explain the solution you are providing and the consequence. Sometimes it has other components. So biggest one is situation, causes, problem, solutions, and consequences. Okay. So sometimes you speak of situation, of a causes, of a problem. Sometimes you skip the consequences. Sometimes you skip the situation. But let's see, this is this kind of sequence where we speak of a situation. For example, when we speak about our product Beacon First, we start by saying that in the HR, in the world of people, all companies have a problem in either generational gap, people engagement, and high turnover. And the reason for this is an updated and not adequate management model. So the solution is, okay, you got it. So basically, you go through a situation, reasons, problems, causes, problems, solutions, and consequences. So sometimes you go all over, but more often you speak. The most important that should always be there are the problem and the solution. Okay. So in some cases you stay more on the consequences or on the causes, but this is a narrative. Okay. It's easy to follow. Especially if you think it's complex, you can anticipate it in your introduction. So we will speak about temperature raising in the world. We will see the causes, the possible solution, and the consequences if we apply or if we don't apply those solutions. You're ready. You're ready for me to go over, and you know exactly what's coming. Okay? One other is chronological. In the past, this one was one of the favorite of Steve Jobs. When he was presenting, he didn't speak about problems. He spoke about time. It was a future man. In the past, we used to do like these, and these. Today, we have these, that we'll be able to do this in a different way. And in the future, we will be able to do even these, and these. You follow me?
Yep.
Sometimes you use a reverse order of the sequence. For example, in business presentation, when they ask you to speak about yourself, sometimes you go present, past, and future. My name is this, my skill is this, my background comes from this, and I'm looking for this. You see, present, past, and future. So the order can be changed according to your storyline, or you can go future to past if you want to focus on the past, depending. Maybe it's, it's a story that goes back to the ancient times. But the time is your frame, okay? Sometimes, just bullet points. In my case, the structure was bullet points. Very easy. I have 2 bullet points. How to build a presentation and how to deliver it. So you see, sometimes it's easy as it can be. Sometimes a question structure can be used. I like this very much. And also here you can choose which of those questions. Maybe I use a lot just why, how, and what. We'll speak about, pick any topic, like buying. We'll see why people do choose to buy, how this is achieved by companies, and what are the best techniques to do it in your company. Something like that. The questions are guiding you. Every time you start one part of your presentation, one body, okay, now we'll see how. It's like you're seeing the structure in your mind. Yes, people will be able to do as well, and will be able to follow you. And lastly from this list, there are many more. The important concept here that there should be a structure. This is a one that was used a lot by Quintilian, an orator in early Roman Empire. Thesis, confutation, affirmation. You state your thesis, your main idea, then you confutate yourself, and then you affirm it again. This is powerful. This requires a pretty skilled speaker, but basically you speak against yourself. So I tell you my thesis. For example, public speaking is good, and then I take the opposite part. But many people think that it's not useful anymore today, because through social, you don't have the chances of speaking. Think of how many jobs you can acquire just by compiling forms, and how many of our interactions today happen through social media, where you don't actually speak, but you write. So it's a skill of the past, because today, and I could go on, but then I computate the computation and refer my main point. This is all, it's very useful. Yes, this requires very skill, but it is useful when? Try to guess.
When do you expect
Yes.
audience to resist?
Yes, when you expect people to have those kind of resistances, because you are basically answering them. If you expect most of the people to have a kind of resistance, you can build that resistance into your speech and made it the structure on computating on those objections. Okay? Of course, the logos should stand. For example, if I add that kind of computation, I should be able to answer myself with a new arguments that explain why public speaking is important even more today with all the social going on. And probably I would be able to do that, but I need to, okay, you must be, in each part of your speech, should be clear your position. Again, clear that you're stating, clear that you're opposing, and then you're breaking the objection. Yes, this is delicate, but when the speaker is good, it's really, really powerful. Because basically, you already answer the questions. Yeah. Okay, any question on body? Because we are moving to conclusion. And then after conclusion, we will make a little break. Yes? Yeah.
So you said it's very important to keep the attention. So
Yeah.
what are the techniques we can use? For example, I was wondering if
Yes, these are in the delivery canon. So invention, disposition, style, memory, and delivery. These are about the delivery. So here in disposition, we are examining how the speech is built. In delivery, we will see how you keep the attention. No questions? Usually when there are no questions, either everything is clear or nobody is listening. I hope that's the first one, because as a public speaker, if no one is listening, it would be a bad example. Can I go on?
Yeah.
Okay. Conclusion. What's the goal of conclusion? Two main. It's very simple. Conclusion actually is very simple. First goal is impressing the memory the main concept. It's like picking a hammer and nailing down the main thing you want people to remember. Okay? And
Even repeating the
yes. Yes. And often, I put often that because I've stated before, there are two kinds of speeches, informative and persuasive. During an informative speech, that's just it. You have just to have people remember something. During a persuasive speech, you either have to change an idea or generate a behavior. That are two of the most difficult tasks you can be willing to embark in.
Sometimes we put the conclusions at the beginning. We start with the conclusion.
Yes.
And then we go through.
Yes,
That's because we want that during the structure of the presentation or the speech, the people we are in front of are thinking to the initial conclusion, trying to understand
yes.
If what we concluded at the beginning was correct or not.
That's very similar to having the thesis in your introduction.
Yeah.
That's mainly what thesis is. Thesis is your main idea put at the beginning of everything. That was exactly what I meant with thesis. So during a conclusion, you always do a closure. This means there is something that is the last thing you say. If they don't bring you away speaking, and then okay, there is something that concludes your speech. And then most of the time there is a resume and a call to action. Again.
There is not a call to action, it's not good for a consultant.
Yes,
Yeah.
in your kind of speech, it's not an informative speech. Your kind of speech is a persuasive speech. You want your client to do something different.
Yeah.
So in your case, there is always a call to action.
Yeah.
So here, most of the main meme you are building is pathos. You are done building your ethos. You are done explaining. Now you have just to move emotions, either by depends on which kind of emotional reaction you want to achieve, inspiring or even fear in case of the danger.
Yeah.
Now you have to, because okay, here the main mean you have to sharpen your conclusion is pathos. So the resume is what we have said. Oh, first there is again a transaction. It should be clear that you have stepped into the conclusion from your way of speaking and even the verbs you are using, as we have seen. Okay, in conclusion, phrasal sentences like these help people knowing you are in the conclusion. I kill movie. You know when the end is coming, don't you? It's not just a sequence of things. That's what happens when you don't have structure. You just go over one thing and then the other, with no flow, no structure, nothing connecting them. Then there is a call to action. Very clear what you want them to do and how. And then there is a closure. That is literally the last thing you say. And again, the closure, there are several ways you can close. The most effective and the most used one, and the one I suggest because it's very easy, in English it's called a low branching fruit. You ever heard the expression? The fruit on the low branch. You can pick very easily. It's the book holder. What's a book holder? How do you hold books? How many book holders do you need to hold books on a shelf? How many? Two. Why? Because if you just put one, they fall on the other side. You know, book holder. You're following me? Hey. Okay. Make that with the head. Okay. Book holder means that you are using the same opening as your closure. This is so effective and so cheap. You open it with a quote, start concluding with a similar one or the same quote but change the quote, for example. Or you open with a question, close with the same question or with the answer on that question. You open with, I don't know, a story, tell the second part of the story. Maybe you can. For example, in my case, I can say, and then I ended up working with them as a trainer for their team. I don't know, whatever. But linking to the beginning gives that sense of closure that is so important. Okay? Then you can have again quote, question, different one. Even if you didn't open with that, you can end with a quote or question. Or the goal. You can end with the goal. You remember, it's a kind of book holder, but even if you didn't start with the goal. So my goal today was making you better speaker. I don't know if I succeeded. I could only, and you start, okay, speaking about that, with the goal. Or you can call with a gift. It's not a physical gift, but if you want people to take away something, presenting it as a gift, it's really useful because people start thinking they have received. So today I will leave you with this for the future, remembering to always spend at least, I don't know how much time preparing the speech and doing the, okay, stating up, leaving them with something. Or even a signature. So I'm putting this here just for sake of completeness. Signature means you always close in the same way. This is used if you want to become a speaker or a kind of, if you have an audience that changes over time, then you can study a signature that always closes your speeches in the same way. So people know that you're closing and that's you. Okay. You can see a lot of, yes,
Interesting.
yes, you can see a lot of those in YouTube videos, for example. Sometimes it always is something as, since they are editing a music or a sound or something like that inside your speech. Yes. Okay, so a speech must be written. Has to be written, speech. Yes or no?
Structure.
Yes. So one of the biggest mistakes of people writing down a speech is writing down the speech. It's one of the lamest thing one can do because basically is restricting your options. The written language is so much poorer and sterile than the spoken language. If you now close your head and I started reading a book, you would know immediately that I'm reading. Why? Because the range of expressions, the range of the variety of my speech would be incredibly lowered because we weren't able to invent a way of writing that was able to collect everything that the spoken word can do. So if you write it down, you're actually restricting everything you can think. Yeah.
What if you have to convey an idea in 1 minute?
That's a speech.
You have to write it down or not?
You have to write down, even for 3 hours, you have to write down. You don't have to write it down, the things that you say.
In 1 minute,
That's
you
a,
have
that's
to choose the right words to express what you want to say the best.
So you do the same thing. It's just more difficult. You're just trying to imagine a very difficult situation because convey one word in 1 minute is very difficult. So it's not different. It's just more difficult. The thing you have to do is writing down what is called the outline. The outline is the structure in a written form. Is a way of writing down your speech that will help you go through it, but without writing sentences and punctuation and that kind of writing in the jargon. This is called writing for the eye and writing for the ear. That's how public speaker author calls it. If you write for the eye, you're writing for someone that has to read. If you write for the ear, you are writing for someone that has to speak and be heard. It's a completely different way of writing. And you're doing it a bit. Like now, I'm sure you haven't written down everything I've said, have you? Of course not. What you did was flowing. Flowing is the process of taking notes in an outline format. The point is that we never learned an outline format, did we? We just invented it. Someone did teach you taking notes during the lesson? No. And I'm sure all of you, since you don't have a framework, have invented your own way. Someone writes a lot, someone makes shapes and arrows, someone has to make some picture here and there. Is it true? That's something.
I give a positive trend in the market. By
Yes.
now at the elementary school, they teach how to do it.
Wow, that's so good. If they are teaching good, that's good.
So different schemes,
Yeah.
different methodologies. So each child can decide which one to use, but they teach it.
Yeah. So basically, the outline, just a second, the outline is the structure that we have all just concluded in a written form. It's more important the the order, okay? The space, the structure you're creating than the context. Because this way, you know which are the main points, which are the example you are bringing as proofs, and where the conclusion ends. There are many ways of doing it. I will just show you some of them. So these are the most used way of making an outline. Another one, and this is very useful if you have a watch. Yes, you know. Yes, you have. If you have a watch and you are used to look at the watch, it's very useful if you have to speak for some time, let's say 40 minutes. It's very useful. I think I have to slide. Yes, this kind, where you in that page, you start here, and then these are the times, and these are the topics. Main topics here. So the structure goes radial. Is it clear?
Yes,
This is very useful because then you may, with a glance, see where you are, where you should be, what's the main topic and what's the details. Okay, this is a radial. Okay, or I do another way. Again, I used to do this, but then I started to do many things that wasn't in the hour, and I didn't have a watch, so this is not so common to me. And now I have something like that with the indentations, and then I have two columns here for engaging and humor. We will see it in delivery. I make a mark here if in this point I have a humor or a joke or a way of engaging the audience. Because
that's just because you're a professional in
Yes,
public
yes.
speaking, because for let's call it normal person, it's not, that is not used to be prepared
Yes.
in a sort of.
Hi.
Why?
Do you have two spare chairs?
There's one. Why don't you? Here you are.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So,
Not easy.
no, not easy. But okay, maybe not the humor. Even if I will go there in a while. We will speak about this in the delivery. But my idea is that the structure is not something written down. Is a good rule for your outline is this. When you try, okay, we will see it into the memory step. When you are trying your speech, if you are able to help yourself by glancing at the paper without stopping, this is a good outline. If you need to pause and read, this is not a good outline. Okay? This is a very good rule of thumb. If you're able to keep it in hand, and just by glancing, you can help yourself without stopping, it's well made. If you have to stop, it's too dense. Okay? It's too written. Okay, you had a
Just for the sake of challenging what you said and better understand, politicians, who are, I think, one of the most
yes.
best public speakers, and at least some of them, they, I think, write down their full speech word by word punctuation and follow it very precisely.
Yes.
So it's very different from what you just said.
So, well, not all politicians, first, not all politicians, and then it's a very specific field, those politicians. And even when they write everything down, they don't hold a paper in front of them. And when they do, the people that did, that was, even if they were the best in everything else, that was against the overall effort. For example, it has been known recently that Obama used to have the full speech in front of him, while every time he was speaking to the camera. And there was a lot of noise about that, because people didn't know. People thought that he was sincere. The point is, when you read, you don't look, you're putting yourself in it. you're not speaking, you're reading. Something you read is something that distances you from. And so you should never have something in front of you. You could write everything down, but when you do, it means that it is written down from someone that is so skilled in public speaking, that is able to write down a speech with a full range of the effort. Okay? Okay, so you can write it down, but you write it down after going through the presentation, and just by, it's difficult to explain. So it's not written down as a first thing. Politician speak is written down after tries and tries and tries, and by the most paid speaker authors in the world, actually. So yes, at that level you can, but it's the last, and even those cases you shouldn't have that paper in front of you, especially now. Some times ago it was more accepted. Now people reading are experienced differently. We have grown out of reading speeches. Now it's not so. Think about you. How would you feel if I would going to today reading the lesson? How would you feel? More? That I am not in control. I don't know enough. It says
Yeah,
that,
at the end I can read it on my own.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I could have write it my own. Why is that guy reading?
But I don't think I could read on my own a speech given from, let's say, a politician that I like, that I think is a leader, or I don't know, my party, my country, whatever. The way he conveys the message,
Yes.
he delivers it, it's not something I could do
No.
by just getting a piece of paper and reading it.
Yes.
So I don't think I could just read the script.
No. Of course not. It's like, so, when you are so good in the first outlining, drafting, and speaking, then you can also deliver a written. Think about, again, it was so easy, the metaphor of movies. Okay. When actors are so good in pretending to be natural, they can have a very precise and detailed script, scripting every single emotion, because they are so good in doing it, and the people that wrote it down is so good in writing it, that they are able, the difficulty is putting into a paper the complexity of speech. If you are going to do it, you wouldn't be able to, okay, to leave as much on a paper if you write down everything. If there is a professional script writer and a professional actor, they can use a written document in between. Okay? Yes?
When you said written speech, it was also implied that it's better to not memorize it. I mean, it's better to have keywords, like in the end, I'm always sometimes...
Memory is the fourth canon. Keep your question for that, because I have a full canon on it.
Okay.
We have gone through invention, delivery. Keep that question, because fourth canon is memory. So we are making the break now. 10 minutes, is it enough?
Yeah.
At 11:20, and see you later. Si è capito la mia reazione? È come se avessi tirato una mano dei Va bene.
about the 10 of a hat?